Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. This is the planning meeting of the Board of Education. And we're still waiting for some board members, huh? Should I start? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get started. This is a planning meeting of the Board of Education, and the idea was to have a discussion this evening of the academic preparedness data from last year, from the 24-25 school year. So the weird part for those of you looking at home or those of you sitting here this evening is that the board is in the audience, and we have our curriculum leadership team here at the dais because they're going to be doing the presenting of this information. And it's a presentation to the Board of Education, and we hope that it'll be a discussion so that the Board of Education has an opportunity to make some inquiries related to our academic preparedness data from the 24-25 school year. So yes, you're seeing the right thing. It's our administrators sitting at the dais this evening, a different feel for them. And then our Board of Education sitting in the audience, who will have the opportunity to ask some questions of our administrators as we move forward. And so I'll just introduce everybody real quickly. We have Nick Pay, maybe just give a wave. Jill Johansson, Amy Michaelopoulos, Elliot Lewin, CJ Scholes, and Jackie Kane. And I'm Ken Graham, the superintendent. So we're going to get going. The reason I chose to call this the academic preparedness this evening is on the right-hand side of this diagram, you'll see that that's the New York State Portrait of a Graduate. This was adopted by New York State recently, and we're not exactly sure what this means for schools, but we do know that there are changes that are coming related to graduation requirements. And one of the elements of the Portrait of a Graduate is academically prepared. Right? And so this evening, we're going to share some information on academic preparedness based on last year's assessment results. And I just want to preface this entire discussion by saying academic preparedness and assessment results, they're one measure of our students. There are multiple measures. There's probably thousands of metrics and data points that we take on our students every single day. Some of them are quantitative, like the results of a test. Some of them are qualitative, like I know the students who are sitting in front of me, and here's what I know about them, and here's what I can share with parents and families or support staff. This is one metric, and we're presenting on that one metric this evening. So our conversation is going to be very narrow in focus, but that doesn't mean that our work is narrow in focus. There's a lot of other things that we pay attention to measure success of our students. I'm going to have that clicker problem again with it clicking a couple steps. The presentation overview this evening is we're going to go briefly through our elementary and middle school assessment results. We're going to talk about Regents exams, AP exams a little bit. We're going to give an overview of the class of 2025, and then each of our coordinators here this evening are going to share some of the work that they're doing to help us to continue to grow in this area as a district. One of the areas that we've been focused on in our time together, my time here, is hopefully increasing participation in our state assessments. New York State has grades 3 to 8 math and ELA assessments each year. There are also science assessments within 5th grade and 8th grade. And so these are our participation rates for our elementary students, grades 3 to 5. And you'll see there is an upward trend over time there. And for middle school, it's much lower, but a similar upward trend over time. The difficulty is if you look at math here, middle school here, and you look at the numbers, 35%, 33%, when we get the results from these assessments from the state, you know, they're based on a very, very small portion of our students. They're based on roughly, for the middle school, a third of our students. So we don't necessarily look at this as You can hear me, right? Yeah, it went back on, yeah. So we don't necessarily look at this as the best data point because it's such a small portion of our student body. So what we choose to rely on instead is we do offer the STAR assessment for our students. And the STAR assessment is our universal screener. It's what we use, and our students take the STAR assessment. It's a computer-based adaptive test that students take each year several times throughout the course of the school year. So if you look, there's a measure of pre-K literacy there. The graph right to the left of it is our KM1 literacy, and that's an early literacy. That's pre-reading skills. So you notice that for 1st grade, let's say, you see the numbers go down a little bit, And that is not all of our students in first grade, right? During first grade, that's when students shift from the early literacy to go to the STAR reading assessment. So it depends on where a student is in terms of their reading continuum. When we look at our elementary reading assessment, yeah, for sure. It's got a red light. Red's not good usually, right? Okay, so now we're looking at our elementary reading assessment results based on the STAR again, and these graphs are showing the percent at or above grade level. And we know that we see a downward trend there. That's not what we want to see over time, is a downward trend. But we are optimistic in terms of the work that we're doing in our elementary schools, in particular focused on literacy instruction. Has been a major focus of Jackie Kane, of our elementary principals, of all of our elementary staff. They've been receiving significant amounts of training and work related to literacy instruction. So it's something that we believe over time we're going to see a different trend in that graph. Unfortunately, when you're doing this type of work, and I wasn't sure which type of tree or growth to use with the group this morning when we were talking, but it's really like planting the seeds of an oak tree. And if we plant the seeds today, we're not going to see a tree for a little while, right? And so that's the difficulty. When we make programmatic changes today, we're not going to see a corresponding decrease that's as quick as we'd like it to be. But we do believe that the changes we're making today related to our, in particular, primary literacy instruction are going to give us benefits over time. In addition to that, at the same time, we're making some changes for our intermediate level and making sure that we're attentive to literacy instruction there where we may not have been as attentive to it in the past. Similar results, elementary math. The anomaly there is in first grade, right? Anybody know why that's a lower number? That's the first time the students take the STAR math assessment. So we see that that's a little bit lower. It's as our students get used to and acclimated to taking these assessments. And again, I just want to caution everybody, the Board of Education, our administrative team, anybody who is watching this at home, this is one data point. Sometimes these are tests that are given on a day, and who knows what's happening in a child's life on that particular day. It's not the end-all be-all for us, but it is a data point that we utilize. You know, so then when we go from the STAR assessments, we graduate all the way out to the Regents exams, right? It's a long ways away. But we do share a number of data points related to our Regents results here at the high school and the middle school. We share passing, which is the number, the percentage of students who score a 65 or higher. We have mastery, which is students who score an 85 or higher. On the data that you're going to see in a few moments, we utilize the June scores for all of those, except for ELA, the English Language Arts Regents. That's administered in 11th grade, and we do that in January. So we have students have the opportunity to take the English Regents in January, in June, and August. So for students who struggle, there are multiple opportunities for them to be successful on the exam. With respect to the 2019 data, because we're going to compare the past 3 years of data to pre-COVID data as well, 2019. With respect to that data, we pulled the data from the NYSED school report card, which shows August, January, and June data. It's very difficult at times to report out on the high school Regents exams. I'll tell you why, because at any given June administration, we might have a number of students who have failed the exam previously, who weren't successful, retaking it, who weren't necessarily enrolled in the course that year. Or we might have students who came into the school year late, who weren't in the course, students maybe from an out-of-district placement who came in. So it's not always comparing the same exact group of students to the same group of students. And that's what makes a comparison difficult. It's also difficult when individuals go to the report card or they look at other schools' data presentations as to what data are other schools presenting and are they the same? And it's difficult to look at a presentation and make that determination. So what we tried to do is just say, here's the results pre-COVID, here's where we are over the past 3 years. And you'll see these are our world language exams. That's Spanish and Italian. And for our checkpoint A, we did not administer the checkpoint A until 2022 for the first time. So there's no 2019 results there. And then checkpoint B is essentially a 10th grade exam for most students. And the checkpoint B was utilized as our graduation Regents exam for world languages in 2019. But you see very similar results there across the board. Obviously, a number that we want to look at is mastery. And that's something that we want to look at across the board. When we look at our English language arts, we see that, again, that pre-COVID measure of 2019, and we see very similar numbers today. And what we're finding in all of the disciplines is essentially a rebound. And over the past couple years, we're starting to rebound to where we were prior to COVID. And that's not unique to North Babylon. That's most school districts. You had a lot of changes taking place. Not only did we have students not having to take exams during COVID, in the years following, there were a number of exams that students did not need and they were exempt from. So that impacted results. We also know that many of the exams have changed over that time, and we'll talk about some of those changes in a couple minutes. But the exams are very different from 2019. What you'll hear commonly when you talk to teachers, and if you look at, let's say, an Earth Science Regents exam this year, and you talk to a teacher, they're going to say, there was nothing about glaciation on the exam, this was a reading test. And that's what we're finding more and more with the Regents exams, is that they are reading tests. And so you remember those graphs that I was showing earlier about literacy, that becomes even more important, right? Because if the tests continue to move this way, and they are reading exams, we have to make certain that our students are reading so that they can access the content and display their skills during those assessments. For algebra, and again, an area that we want to focus in on is mastery as well as passing. Some of the things that we want to continue to work on here with respect to the exam and explore further is currently our students don't have the Regents count in their average, and there's been a lot of, we have a do no harm, so that if the score on the exam is going to hurt a student's average, we don't count it. But if it's going to help, we do count it in their average. And that's not the same as a lot of other places do it. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen. It does happen. But there are districts where it is counted in the average. And some of our teachers have expressed concern that, it not counting in the average perhaps is disincentivizing students from, doing anything other than just passing it. So it's something that we need to explore as a system. Algebra 2 and geometry. And again, we're looking at, our hope is to get those numbers back to the pre-COVID levels. With respect to science, I think some of the changes that occurred in science in particular this year in biology and in earth science, the exams were absolutely brand new. And not only did the exams change, the curriculum and units of study within those courses changed so much that you had to do everything entirely different. How you teach changed for the better, but it's going to take some time to catch up with the exams. And I think everywhere across the state, any school that went to the new earth science or the new biology saw significant changes in their passing rates. Chemistry and physics. And again, we see some large fluctuations year to year. I'm going to hold off on speaking to any of those just now. With respect to social studies, again, this is an area where we see getting back to those pre-COVID levels, and in some instances, surpassing those pre-COVID levels. But it's really also we need to focus on mastery as well. With respect to our AP exams and our results there, one of the things that we try to do is compare the North Babylon results to the global averages and the New York State averages. And you see, when looking at this line by line, there are many areas where we are exceeding the state and global averages. And that's a good thing, right? It does beg the question of whether or not we have enough students in those classes, and I don't mean enough to fill them, but can more of our students sit in those classes and access the content? And perhaps we would see a corresponding decrease or a slight decrease in the percentage of students earning a 3 or higher, but we would see more students earning a 3 or higher if we gave more access to those courses. And that's something that we have to explore as an administrative team as well. Here's some more of the AP results there. Sometimes it's a new course. You know, psychology is a new, AP psychology is a new course for us. So there's going to be an implementation dip, and you're not going to get the results that you would want in year one necessarily. But, and anybody who's ever taught an AP course, myself included, when you teach an AP course, you don't really become the best at being the AP teacher for 3 to 5 years. It's a skill that you have to really get good at, sorry. And it's something that we have a number of courses that in any given first year you see that there are areas that we need to grow in. So with respect to our class of 2025, we still maintain our graduation rate is fairly constant, right around 90 to 92% each year. We have 85% of our students earning a Regents diploma, 42% an advanced Regents diploma. The advanced Regents diploma is where those Regents like Algebra 2, Geometry, and Chemistry become very important with respect to students shooting for the advanced Regents diploma and being successful on those exams. And so that is something that if we are to look at our advanced designation and we want to have that number increase, we need to have corresponding increases for Chemistry, for Algebra 2, and for Geometry as well. We have a number of students, and we presented on this last year, earning the Seal of Civic Readiness. I think Mr. Lewin said that we should have close to 100% this year with the Seal of Civic Readiness. We have no pressure, right? We have our Seal of Biliteracy. That's for students who are graduating as multilingual from high school. I'm not going to go to this now, but one of the things that we did each year when schools report out to colleges, and when students are in Naviance and they apply to colleges, there's a school profile that goes out with all of the applications. And this year, Dr. Klomp, our counselors, and our administrative team here at the high school did a significant amount of work on revising the school profile for North Babylon High School to hopefully show the well-rounded education that our students are getting here. And when our students are sending their applications out, our hope is that that new profile is helping to make our students look very competitive compared to other places, so that people realize that when you come out with a North Babylon High School diploma, that there was a lot of factors that went into it, and it's a significant accomplishment. So that'll be hyperlinked from the presentation, anybody that wants to see the new profile. It's also on our school webpage, right off the high school. So, enough Ken talk at this moment. I'm going to pass the microphone over, and we're going to start with CJ. I thought you guys were supposed to sit in order, no? Oh, all right. So Mr. Schultz is going to share, each one of the coordinators at this time is going to share some of the work that they're doing to help with ongoing improvements in their respective areas.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for having us here to talk a little bit about our subject areas and our focus areas for the year. So for ELA, using the assessment data that we have, both the Regents exam and also the STAR data that we have at the middle school, those probably would be the most significant influences in coming up with these ideas and areas of focus for both PD and for assessment review. Something that is consistent at all levels in the secondary years is vocabulary. As far as an area for opportunity, an area that our students really need to grow in. So one way that there are a few different ways that we are addressing that, but one of them is use of vocabulary.com, which is a resource that we've had for some years at the high school. We actually added it for the middle school. I've learned that when it first became popular, this was about 10 years ago, it was at the middle school with limited use, and it's been at the high school since then with limited use, but we've really expanded this year the use of this site. And just to give you a little bit of information about that, it's an adaptive resource where teachers can create lists, which are essentially units of vocabulary study. It's meant to be done within the context of units that you're learning, really can be in any subject area, ELA, science, social studies, math, whatever. And we are looking to really have it used in an interdisciplinary way. Once the students are given a list, they are put through adaptive series of questions where the algorithms and the AI in the resource are figuring out what the students know, what they don't know, and continuing to work them toward mastery. So not to give you too much more about vocabulary.com, but I am very proud to report that in the high school, for the month of September in 2024, we answered 50,000 questions on the site. That was last year. For the same month this year, we answered 200,000 questions. Now that is with the addition of about 20,000 or so at Robert Moses, now that we're using that again there. But I'm just really happy to see that the teachers are aware of the fact that vocabulary is a challenge and that this resource is something that really can help us, especially when used within the context of the students' units of study. Additionally, we recognize the text analysis, both the reading component of text analysis and the writing component are areas for growth as well. This is also from data that we received from New York State as well as from STAR. So we are taking measures to improve our assessments at the high school level as well as the middle school level. And then we recently reworked the humanities skills class. That's 6 to 12. And that specifically has a quarterly assessment that is designed to be linked to this type of writing, which is essentially using evidence to support claims, whether it be argumentative or analytical of some sort. So again, the goal is to use the data to take a look at how our students are doing and to make very focused efforts to improve.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing us some time today. I just wanted to talk a little about social studies. Without sounding too redundant from Mr. Schultz, one of our biggest focuses in social studies is literacy. As Dr. Graham had pointed out earlier, like when we were taking social studies courses, there was a lot of memorization of factual information and dates, people, and just kind of regurgitating a lot of it on a piece of paper. And a lot of that's changed, where students now really have to be able to analyze historical documents, some of them written hundreds of years ago, and be able to read through those documents and be able to write about them. So it's a lot more challenging than it used to be. So to that end, we spent a lot of time in the social studies department and continue to spend time focusing on reading and writing strategies and activities around reading and writing. Vocabulary instruction being one of those. As well as being able to even annotate historical documents, being able to recognize what's important in the document, what may be less so important, and then being able to write about it coherently and analytically in detail with clarity. The idea behind this is that students can become more independent in their thinking, think a lot more critically, and become better writers, and really think and write like a historian. So that's it's one of our biggest goals in social studies. We're also working with the middle school teachers. I'm working with the middle school teachers as well to really align what we're doing at the middle school and in the high school. So really working on a lot of the same literacy strategies at the middle school. So there's a foundation at that level as well. And really scaffolding expectations in student preparation, grades 6 through 12, throughout those years regarding reading and writing. One of the other big umbrellas that we're really focusing on in social studies is student engagement, really developing and supporting student-centered practices. So Dr. Graham was talking earlier about Portrait of a Graduate. So a lot of this is, activities and strategies and trying to work with teachers to not only be the ones to really deliver information, but allow students to really explore that information on their own and take a lot more ownership of their learning in a more active way rather than passive. So the idea is for them to not just engage more deeply in what they're doing, but as a result, be able to really develop a deeper understanding of the material and being able to really show what they know and what they understand. And to that end as well, we talked about civic readiness. So as you know, we've had more and more students over the last few years graduate with the Seal of Civic Readiness, and our goal is to continue to promote civic readiness opportunities, both in 8th grade and at the high school level, really giving students real-world real-world problems to be able to solve on their own and in their own communities, and really building on leadership and teamwork and critical thinking, but giving them a voice for what it is and choice for what they're interested in exploring, and being able to have a voice in making a difference with that. So another important piece of what we're doing in social studies. Just a couple of other quick things. How do we really get there in terms of literacy, and how do we get there in terms of really promoting a higher level of student engagement? We've been working a lot on providing targeted professional development opportunities. So I'm working with teachers not only at department meetings, but at our built-in high school professional period, spending a lot of time with our high school teachers doing that. We've had working with consultants from the outside, but also what we're doing is a lot of teachers in the social studies department are actually spearheading professional development for their colleagues. So there's no other better, that's a great way to learn besides just for what I'm telling them all the time we're talking with them about. It's for them to be able to learn from each other. And we have a lot of fantastic teachers with a lot to offer, and it's great to see that they're working with each other as a result. Over the summer, we also actually, a lot of our teachers also spent time revising curriculum, units of study, scopes and sequences, pacing guides, to really kind of align our practices and be able to revisit those during the school year, so that every student on each grade level is getting a similar experience regardless of the teacher that they're having, and that our practices are aligned among, within the grade level and among the grade levels.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak tonight about math. So first thing I wanted to address was we noticed from 2024 to 2025, there is a dip with our algebra regents. And when you look a little bit deeper, what it doesn't say in this number is what is going on there. And if you just compare the students that are taking that for the very first time, that is comparable in terms of the about 75% passing rate. So where are those students with that are having that dip? And this is really speaking to opportunities that we're providing for students. We have more opportunities for students to actually take the regents. So these are students that have taken, we are providing courses that will allow them to prepare for the regents in January and June, and that has gone up significantly. So from 9 students passing to 32 students passing. So, and then that also has an increase in the students that failed, but that number is not as high as we are seeing in the success rate. So I say that because I think that although there's a dip, it does speak to our providing students opportunities to persevere and stick with taking the regents and finding success with that, and providing actually instruction and helping them get there. With that really leads into our focus. The first number one focus is the period and a half for algebra and geometry. And in this, we're really leveraging our classroom time to really not just be more practice of just doing a math worksheet, but actually more time for thinking and discovering, and time to really problem solve. So rather than seeing like mimicking or just copying down the exact procedure, what a teacher does, students will be exploring and investigating. So rather than, say, for example, 2x plus 3 equals 15, I'm sure all of you know that equals 6, x would be 6. The question may be presented to the students of find as many ways as possible to get a solution of 6, which would then there would be actual student discussion and multiple ways to solve a problem. And so those are some of the activities that we would see that are low floor, high ceiling, defronting the classroom in during that period and half, and just rich tasks for students to really discuss and have time to explore and really connect with the concepts. The next focus is really with our L's. We noticed that in our data that the new entrants, where there was a lot of difficulty in terms of coming in and taking a Regents level course right away. And that was something that we tried with an integration class immediately into a Regents level class. So that's one modification, and now we are using our investigations of algebra for our new entrants to start there. We also have created a baseline assessment for new entrants that when they come in, so we can identify what their skills, or their gaps, or where their strengths are, so we can successfully help them be prepared to take the Regents level class in the second year. A major focus for us is data. Obviously, we're doing the typical item analysis and performance standards on the past Regents, but we're really taking that to a much deeper level, and we are having targeted common assessments for algebra, geometry, and Algebra 2 for every single unit exam. And that's providing us immediate information about misconceptions, and we're having the opportunity to fill those gaps immediately rather than waiting till a midterm or looking at past June data to address that. So we can make those immediate instructional interventions and reteaching and just individualize feedback, but it's on the whole department level. So everybody is looking at the same thing, and we're having those discussions. When is that happening? As Mr. Lewin discussed, we have the professional period. So we're using that professional period time. So for algebra, geometry, and Algebra 2, they have their own professional periods. So during those times, we meet regularly, and we're working on not only the lesson planning, reviewing the data, addressing what we're seeing, but also creating those common assessments and making those changes to immediately changes for the instruction. And then finally, we're focusing our professional development on really focus on the instructional strategies and how we are presenting our lessons. So really getting away from the teachers just up and giving a just direct instruction, but more of the student-centered thinking, the productive struggle with that period, and half the students have the time to have that productive struggle and persevere and work through those problems. Student collaboration and communication, and these are all strategies within the Building Thinking Classroom, inquiry-based lessons, and like the 3-act math. So we're modeling those professional developments from that. So those are our focuses with math. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm really happy to be sharing with you all the things that I'm enthusiastic about for North Babylon and all things science. We've been looking forward to the shifting that you can hear as a theme throughout all of our disciplines since 2016 in science, and so this finally feels like a culmination of lots and lots and lots of work over the course of years to get ready. And you know, one of the things that I really endorse and what I love about the new science instruction and the new science standards is that it really focuses on making the students behave like scientists. All of the classroom tasks are focused on doing the things that scientists do when they have a question about something that they want to learn more about, and how do they figure out ways to solve a problem or to answer that question using investigations and analyzing data, and then going on and arguing with that data, and then even publishing it and arguing. And when I say arguing, I just mean conversation with colleagues. So these are all the things that the science teachers are doing on the secondary level here in North Babylon. You can see in the picture there's a scientist circle happening even in 6th grade. This is earlier, last week actually. So they're standing in a circle in the classroom and they're having a discussion and they're looking each other in the face and responding to what each of the students are saying about a particular thing that they were investigating a few minutes before that scientist circle. So all of our instruction on the secondary level is really focused on authenticity, authentic science practices. And we're really grateful that the board supported the purchase of some kit materials for the middle school to support Open SciEd, which is a brand new curriculum for the middle school, and that is going really, really well. It's teaching the students how to be in science class, and it's no longer sitting in your desk taking notes and as Mr. Lewin said, regurgitating facts. It's all about the skills that you're building. And a lot of times when we think about those skills, it's things that the students need for college. They have to be able to critically think. They have to be able to collaborate. They have to be able to communicate. So all of these things are now being very embedded in the daily instruction that the teachers are doing. Obviously, because the exams are new in science, we're doing a deep data dive in the exams that have happened both that our students sat for in June, and also the ones that happened in August that maybe a smaller cohort sat for. So we're spending a considerable amount of time tying the data that we have to the particular standards of each question, and making sure we understand how we might target any areas in our instruction to strengthen some performance on those. I had the pleasure this afternoon after school of doing a literacy instruction in science PD with Mr. Schultz, and we had quite a few high school teachers there, and really, they're very invested in how to help their students learn how to read specifically in a science context, and what are some instructional strategies that they can do in order to help our students tackle these very complicated tasks on these new Regents exams. So they were really, they had wonderful questions. They were very invested. We were talking about having a part 2 that kind of went in even a little bit deeper. And it's definitely something that I want to turnkey for the middle school instructional staff, and I think is something that really will benefit a lot of students. We are involved in lots of assessment design. So because, in the past, Regents exams, there are question banks, right, where teachers can, siphon through and figure out what they want to use to help teach students about the Regents exam questions. Well, because the exams are new, there are not such a plentiful, cache of these questions. So a lot of our work has been focusing on how can we design question clusters that mimic those on the Regents exam. How might we use AI actually to help out with some of our structuring, and then take whatever AI gives us and modify it to make it more aligned with what the Regents exam what the Regents exam gives us. So we've been working on that during professional periods. In addition, the teachers have been doing a tremendous amount of work co-planning. They're changing all of their lab activities from the traditional cookbook, stepwise. If you do A, B, C, D all the way through, you're going to get a finite answer at the end. Now they're opening them up to make them more inquiry-based. And a lot of that is happening during the professional period. A couple of things that I'm excited about are things like this year we have a pretty significant increase in our enrollment in chemistry. We have about 70 more kids. We're at 300 now. And I really like that because it shows that we're sending the message to kids that it's a great thing to challenge yourself with higher level science. Chemistry doesn't necessarily count for your diploma. And so it's something really exciting to say that we think that students should be exposed to that. So working with guidance and working to advertise to students that, taking these higher level courses is a really good thing is something that I'm really proud of. And finally, just through the network of science leaders on Long Island, we're lucky enough that Dr. Klomp and Dr. Graham have allowed us to host one of the collegial circles that's taking part with like 10 different districts around the island. So we have tomorrow, we have physics teachers from all around the island coming. This is going to be the 4th time that they've come to North Babylon. And we have 2 more dates after tomorrow for the rest of the year. And that's going to be a collaboration, again, of like working together to modify curriculum, to get teachers and students ready for new exams, and find better ways, more authentic ways to learn physics in the classroom. So I'm really proud that we host that here. Chemistry, earth science, and biology are hosted by other districts. But it's an honor that we have an opportunity to bring those people in. So there's so much good work going on in science, and I'm really happy that we're finally here after the 2016 adoption of the standards that we're working under, and I think that we're moving onward and upward. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to go over some highlights and goals for our World Language and English as a New Language department. Here on the left, we have our 2nd grade dual language class. On the top there, we have our ENL class at DeLuca, and the bottom right, we have our 1st grade dual language class. So one of the things we want to work on is vertical alignment of our curriculum from kindergarten to 12th grade. So working with our dual language program at Parliament, communicating with the middle school, and then also collaborating with the high school to kind of streamline the curriculum. Then I also want to do some sort of language exchange, so having our world language and ENL students having some sort of club or after-school program where they can practice speaking in their respective languages. For our data evaluation, I want to take a deep dive into our past checkpoint exams, kind of see where our students excelled and where they struggled. And then we also had, last year, we also had our AP teachers participate in the collegial circle. So we want to kind of continue that professional development this year for our teachers as well. This year, they're also having a new dual language leadership learning lab. So I'm going to participate in that. And our first intervisitation will be at the Mineola School District on November 18th. So that'll be interesting to kind of see how they do, work their dual language program. We can hopefully bring back some good ideas for our program. For English as a new language, I want to focus on the registration process, kind of with the lens of our ENL and immigrant families in mind. Most districts, we do have an ENL teacher as part of the registration process. So it's a matter of logistics of getting the teachers to central office, but we're going to work on that to see if we can have maybe some ENL teachers help out with the registration. That kind of leads into our grant with CUNY-I, which is the CUNY Initiative on Immigration and Education. They actually extended the grant for 3 more years, so that's kind of exciting. We're going to work with the middle school. We have 4 teachers, along with Mrs. Hondras and Mr. Rogers, working with the CUNY-I team to kind of create, the needs of for any needs for our immigrant families. So they actually just created a welcome kit, which we're giving out in the middle school, and we want to kind of break to the district as well. For ENL, we're going to look at the NYSESLAT data. Traditionally, it's the expanding level students who have a tough time, testing commanding, testing out, and reading and writing are the areas of focus where we really need to help them. That's where they struggle. So with that in mind, I'd like to incorporate the writing revolution. So it's not a curriculum, it's they're sentence strategies that we can kind of embed into any curriculum. So that's something I want to bring to the district through our ENL teachers first, and then hopefully spread it out throughout the district. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll round us out today, today's presentation, to share some of the exciting work that we're doing at the elementary level. This work actually began last year with some of the data-driven work that we've been working on in the K-5 classrooms. We have had a focus on the systematized targeted interventions using skill-based groups. So we're taking the students' data and we're making sure that we are creating focused interventions for students in any deficit areas that we're finding. We are working toward developing a tiered system of interventions using a data warehouse called EduClimber. This is a system that's going to house our MTSS process. It will also create a tiered system for teachers to work through the interventions. As they find deficit areas, it will allow us to work together to build interventions and help teachers target that instruction. Foundational skills has been a big focus for us as we've tried to work toward becoming more science of reading aligned. We have paid more attention to phonics skills and foundational areas for students, building a stronger foundation, focusing on the hearing that the students hear in words, so phonemic awareness, moving toward letter recognition, decoding, segmenting, et cetera, so that they are reading fluently, which will then lead to comprehension. Some of that work on the foundational skills is leading into some of the work that Mr. Schultz is doing on vocabulary instruction. So we're hyper-focused on phonics instruction at the elementary, building toward fluency and comprehension, and leading toward morphology work in the later years. As you saw in the presentation earlier, there's a plateau in grade 4 and 5, and that can be because of a missing component of science of reading. So it usually leads to a whole word approach in the grades 4 and 5. So as we focus on the decoding in the earlier years, it allows students to work through words, which is the morphology of the work, which then leads to later work in vocabulary. All of this work is to close and target any area deficits that the children are having, to close those gaps so we build a stronger foundation. As we've been working with teachers, I've been meeting with principals as well. That work has resulted in principals meeting with teachers in faculty meetings. In those faculty meetings, they're sharing the same messaging. In my department meetings, we are working on using the data analyzing the data, working systematically to understand how they can interpret the data. I haven't addressed the CBMs, but CBMs are curriculum-based measures. It's taking very small components of instruction and providing the stepping stones toward literacy. So our professional development is geared around building that capacity for teachers to be able to use this data to turn it around into interventions in the classroom to build fluency and comprehension. Literacy consultant, sorry, I wanted to include that. We've been working with a literacy consultant this school year that has been helping us get some of this work, of the morphology work and some of our content knowledge and building, some knowledge building in the students' work. And that has been very productive. She's been meeting with us once or twice a month and is helping us professionally develop our teachers to get ready for this transition and becoming more science of reading aligned. It is actually very exciting what's going on at the elementary level. There are a few moving parts, which is the CBMs, EduClimber, and all of it is working together just to build a stronger foundation at the elementary level so that they are successful later on. Thank you.
So I wanted to thank each of the curriculum coordinators for speaking to their work. It's easy for them to speak to their work. They're doing a lot every single day related to all of the things that are happening in our classrooms, and then working with our building level administrators, our directors, and then working with our teaching staff. So there's a lot of work taking place. It's very easy for them to speak to, very difficult for all of us to digest all of that because it's their work. And we're hearing about it for, the first or the 50th time or something like that. But regardless, it's not the work that we're doing every single day. So with that said, thank you all. And at this time, are there any questions from the board? And I'll do the Phil Donahue.
Before Keisha, nice. Thank you for that presentation. I got a couple questions. Elliot, how are you? How are the social studies teachers adapting to the change that you mentioned with their delivery? Is it welcomed? Are the students enjoying making it more of a student-centered classroom?
I'm glad you asked that, actually. They are. I mean, it's a work in progress. Some people, certainly our younger teachers who've recently gone through teacher ed programs, it's sort of the way that they've been taught in a lot of ways. So I think it's easier for them to adapt versus somebody who maybe 20 years in that's been teaching a certain way for a while. However, that being said, really working and going slowly, I think has been a lot of it, really just trying to allow our teachers to just try things. And I think a lot of that's just been over time and building relationships with them where they can just try something in the classroom that's sort of non-threatening almost and keep at it. And it's been a lot of them trying something and then having conversations around it. Am I giving them feedback? Them trying it again and just kind of reworking that. So they have been. It's been pretty welcomed, I would say, for sure. And it's just going to take some time to get there. But I definitely see growth when I go in now to classrooms. I see a very different environment than I did when I had first started here. Sure.
And does the 9-period day allow for common planning within the subject areas?
It does. So this year, especially, we every grade level has a common planning period during their professional period in social studies. So that's been fantastic in terms of the teachers themselves being able to collaborate, and it's also given me an opportunity to go in there and kind of run like little mini PD sessions essentially with them, and then be able to do follow-up with that.
Okay. And for English, do we have independent reading and book choice? Is that something that's happening at the
Yes.
secondary level?
It is, and it's part of every classroom from 6 to 12. It's pretty consistent in terms of the expectation. It's a full year process. Pretty much at all times, students have, from September to the end of the year, they have an independent book that they've chosen. We start at the middle level with making sure that they understand how to pick a just right book, how to pick something that is appropriate for them in terms of content, in terms of sophistication. And then there are various different short and longer term assessments that go along with that, with the independent reading throughout the year. But one other thing that's important is that all teachers allocate class time. That is done differently. Some do it daily for 10 minutes. Some people do it on Friday for 40 minutes, but we are giving them time to hopefully fall in love with reading in the classroom. Because we recognize that it's something that I was very happy to see that was already in place. I've done my best to support it and push it further, but all of the framework and the bones of the process and project were already in place, and it's something that I feel very strongly about in terms of opening the door to having students be more and more interested in what they read, that you find that entry point. I'm sure all of you out there can think about the book that caught you, you know, that first book that it was, wow, you didn't want it to end, you didn't want to go to sleep, you wanted to read more of it, and hopefully from that point you were able to broaden the interest that you have in other subject areas and other types of reading. I believe that that's the key, especially for reluctant readers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And my question for math. You mentioned building thinking classrooms. Are they receiving PD from BTC?
Yes, we've had 2 PDs on building thinking classrooms, and then that I've provided, and a couple of teachers we have sent out to PDs, and additionally, we actually did some site visits. We took some teachers to actually some schools that are further along in building thinking classroom models, and they observed other districts in doing that. And we're hoping to have some more site visits as well.
I did have a question regarding the collaboration as well, but, you know, Jeff hopped on that one. But even as far as not just in the school and in the classroom, even trips, is there an opportunity to have those 2-for-1 trips for social studies as well as for English, like in units or topics of study that can like bridge, I think, in trying to move us and move the students to having that the current events, the real-time history experience, and make that connection, you know, from text to real life, that real-life connection. Has there been talks about possibly having more of those opportunities outside of the school?
So like experiential learning, like type of?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So in social studies, the last few years, we've been able to take our students to the Holocaust Center in Glen Cove. We've been doing that for a few years now. We're looking to perhaps change that up a bit, but also give them an experience regarding Holocaust and other genocides, and maybe bringing people in to do something. At the high school level, similarly, we're working with them as well to be able to also do a program on genocide. As you probably remember, my presenting the last couple of years on our students that have gone to Albany on a legislative conference. That is, you know, that's really politics in the making. It's, you know, students for a few days are actually dressed up as politicians, and they're in Albany in the state capitol, and they're actually going through exactly what a legislator would go through for a few days. So we've had some, and we're always looking for more. I know I was talking to one of our high school teachers today, actually, in one of our elective classes, our teens in law class, and we're trying to organize something for our students to be able to go to the Suffolk County courts. So we're looking for any and every opportunity that's, you know, within budget and it's for meaningful experiences.
So I didn't sit down because I needed a seat. I wanted to be closer to a microphone also. One of the things that I've started doing this year is I'm signing off on all of the field trips approvals. So there's a lot of steps that have to be met for a field trip to be approved prior to it getting to my desk at this point. But we are looking at every single field trip that we do and seeing how does it make sense with the curriculum. You know, is it curriculum related, or is it outside? Is it extracurricular? And if it's a valuable experience, like some of the experiences that Elliot was talking about, and some of the experiences, quite frankly, that our students in all of these respective disciplines have, because I see them all, we're doing them in all of the disciplines. If they're valuable for one group of students, then they must be that same or equal value for, that same or more of a value for all of our students, and why wouldn't we look to replicate that? So ideally, we're gonna get to a place where we start looking at curriculum-related field trips and say, if this is part of our curriculum, let's continue to do that for all of our students. But I know all of our disciplines are supporting field trips and really looking to target that experiential learning so that it's not only the classroom instruction, but there's also a real-world application of it.
Yeah, because I just wanted to share, I am excited that both my sons are going to the Philadelphia trip. I remember when I went to the Philadelphia trip in the 5th grade, and those experience, you know, that's real life. And you can't duplicate that as much as you can on a text or in a book. So I just think that's a great opportunity. So, all right, thank you. Also, can you speak a little bit for math? The ELL math class, I know you made mention to give more support, and also, is that a class that's open to all, not just EL learners? Like, what does that look like?
So specifically the integrated class, it's an investigations course. So it is targeted for the new entrants. And it is, so that's the model of that course now. Could other students partake in that? If they could, but it's really modeled for the
Okay.
students coming in that may have had disrupted learning or from another country, you know, so that's what it's specifically for. If it was a student that needs extra support, we have other courses that would be ways to support students with Regents classes. Well, with the period and a half, we have that, but also if it's an ICT class or other things like that, that I think might be better suited to support students in other ways. But that's basically the model is for the new entrants. That is not a Regents level course anymore, so that is letting them, we're giving them, like I said, a baseline test when they come in so we can kind of gauge where they are. So there's some fluidity in the curriculum because depending on where the students are that we're receiving at that time, working with them. And I think I answered your question.
Yes.
But do you have more? Okay,
And what's the class size? This is the first year for that class?
This is the first year, it's not a Regents level
Okay.
course. So, it started at 5. We just had 3 new entrants this, last week, so it's up to 8. And it's generally how it starts. It starts small and grows. In the past, in this same course, grew to over 20 students by the end of the year. Students coming in at all different times, all different languages. And so in the past 2 years, when we've had that integrated class, it has grown to in the 20s.
Okay, room to grow, that's great. I had a question regarding, I know last year there were certain, I would say maybe challenges when it came sometimes to like after school. That some days there were so many students that were in some of the after school classes for extra help, I mean. And I'm just thinking of ways, and if you've thought about ways to support the teachers in that, if they have 2 days, and on the Tuesday they may typically have 7 children, but say Thursday they may have a host of like 25 children or 20, which happens. How could, or have you talked or discussed with the teachers in ways to support them on the larger group or organizing it so that they could support the students better during those times when they have such an uptick of numbers?
It's a really good question, and that's not uncommon to happen with math. That, you know, sometimes you don't have anyone, and then at other days you have a lot. So that is definitely a challenge with the 9-period day and that transition and having only certain days that there's extra help. I will say that the teachers have been excellent about, even though they're only required to do extra help on certain days, many of the math teachers go above and beyond and have extra help on other days. In terms of those days when we have a lot of teachers, I think that's a really good thing to take a look at and to have some more discussion with the teachers on. I know we have the Mu Alpha Theta that is open to coming in and being a support for teachers, so maybe that's a way we could use them to come in the day before a test and have them get some hours to help support teachers, but that's certainly something that I will have a discussion with the teachers and look into some more ways that we can support the students on those days.
Thank you. And just for science, I was wondering, have there been any talks or any interest when it comes to like robotics and coding and maybe expanding some of the clubs, or even what's like the pulse of some of those clubs now? Because I know sometimes they're in a wave. So do we have a great demand when it comes to like, I just know my school has like 3D printing, like that's the buzzword. Everyone wants to be in 3D printing. I'm like, okay, it's great. But, you know, is that the buzz also now? Is that currently trending? And if so, what is?
I'm so happy you asked that. Technically, we do those things in our technology classes, not so much in our science classes, but one of the things ever since I started here that I've really been focused on is trying to find ways to integrate some of the newer technology, no pun intended, newer technologies into the curriculum. So a couple of things is that we took a class that used to be called, it was like something like computer maintenance and repair was the name of the course, and we turned that class, which was literally like make sure everything is plugged in kind of curriculum, to now a robotics class. And in the robotics class last year, we introduced, the students were doing VEX robotics, and they were building them and you know, completing challenges. But this year, in addition to doing that, we've incorporated another type of robot called a little Edison robot. They're very small. They plug in with a USB, and you can block code them. So that's where they're working right now. But the very exciting thing is that after they do some robotics work, this class is actually going to have drones. So we've purchased drones class setups and drones curriculum too. So the high school is going to be able to is going to be flying drones in the robotics sections, which are 9 to 12 in terms of the grade levels of the students that are interested in that. I also was able to fund the purchase of a laser cutter, which is really exciting for our architecture curriculum, because the laser cutter, if you've ever seen like a Yeti where you can see that the words have been etched in the color of the Yeti and you can see the silver through it, that's what a laser cutter does, but it does that with all kinds of materials. So our architecture teacher actually has the students design cutouts, like, you know, plans for the sides of a house, let's say, and then he can feed that plan into the laser cutter, and it will actually cut out the wood, and the students assemble their cutouts that they've designed into a home. Or a larger structure, whatever it is, a shed, a home, just all kinds of projects that they're doing. Additionally, we're doing computer-aided design work, which is 3D design in technology. So there have been a lot of things. And just to add, we got chosen through Nassau BOCES, and this was something I didn't mention when I was speaking about science, is that in our 6th grade Exploring STEM class, they're going to be flying drones also in 6th grade. So the students in that every other day Exploring STEM class, the purpose of that class is to integrate math and engineering and science, and this is through the planned pilot, where we've designed the course so that the students are going to be solving a community problem that a drone might help with. So they're going to be researching community problems, looking at ways to solve them, and then seeing how a drone might be able to fit into that based on the types of drones that there are and the industries that drones can be used in. So it's a really exciting thing that I think hopefully as we go forward, we're going to continually invest in some of this, the newer things. We have 3D printers in the same labs as we do the laser cutter. They've been doing all kinds of things with that as well. So yes, yes was the answer.
Yes and yes. Okay, great. And are we looking for or have on maybe like the horizon, like bringing back or the STEM night or the STEAM night we used to have like previously in like the fall or the spring?
I really should let Mrs. Michaelopoulos talk about that, but yes, we're having a STEAM night, and Mrs. Kane too. We're having a STEAM night, and Ms. O'Brien at Robert Moses Middle School. It's October 28th for grades 3 to 5 and their families, and we have probably 18 or 19 different stations planned for that night. So families can come and interact with a bunch of different stations doing a whole host of different STEAM really activities. And I think that will be a really fun, exciting event, including they will be able to drive robots and fly drones in the gym.
Nice.
We're working out we're finishing the logistics of that, and it's going out on Parent Square. It's very,
Nice.
it's exciting, yeah.
Yes.
It's gonna be a fun
exciting
night.
stuff. Okay, thank you so much. And it was more like, this is the last one. Okay, stay awake, Myers. I know it's past your bedtime. It's a comment. The writing revolution, I just wrote it because I think that it sounds great. But, so I'd like to hear what it will unfold into, because it's for everyone, right? So that even though you might be piloting it now, but it's something that could possibly be turnkey for everyone, to come. So I just think that's exciting to know that's something everyone can benefit from. That's it, okay.
I won't ask all my questions. So I do want to say thank you. This has felt like a roundtable. Your grasp of your material is very impressive, I guess it should be. But thank you so much. Thank you for all the talk about PD and the professional development and the work with teachers and the collaboration with teachers, because they're the front line with the students, and that's how we're going to get the success that we really need. I do have a couple of quick questions that and the other ones I'll send to Dr. Graham, which have to do with some data stuff. But we talked about the STAR elementary reading, and it's the down trend that it is. At what point do we know we're on the right track, right? And that's really because we've done reading programs and said, okay, we're going to redo reading programs because that's, and for years, that's the basis of what we need to do, because that's where we get success in English, in secondary, in social studies, in math, and science, and even in foreign language.
So the science of reading is a systematic approach to reading instruction, and in that, it's very focused. So it breaks it down to small components. We are using something called CBMs, which are curriculum-based measures, which break literacy instruction down to steps. So step number 1 is letter recognition, letter sounds, et cetera, and they build from there. So phoneme segmentation, I'll spare you, but it leads to fluency, which leads to comprehension. And the CBMs are a progress monitor, so you don't do it once and then leave it alone. If you see that a student is not at or above benchmark, if they're on watch or if they're at intervention, it is the teacher's job to then start an intervention cycle with that child. So it keeps an accountability, it's a cycle of accountability after 4 to 6 weeks of a targeted intervention, which from what I spoke about earlier, EduClimber is going to house this systematized set of interventions. So if a child is struggling with phoneme segmentation, there will be options of interventions on how they can intervene. That is decided upon by the MTSS group. And then the teacher will move through that as they meet with their MTSS team, with their building principal, with AIS providers, to build a plan for the said child. If that child doesn't progress, that would become the case for a Tier 2 meeting for the child to maybe receive AIS services. So what CBMs do is it creates this cycle of progress monitoring and accountability, so that if I know that letter sounds is an issue, I'm not going to spend so much time on fluency. I'm going to focus on the foundation, because you're not going to get to the fluency component until you've built up the step number 2, which would be letter sounds.
Thank you, and I look forward to that success. I really do, because like I said, we've tried improving reading here, I don't know how many years. I would like to, in math, and not now because it's too early, but maybe mid-year, if we can get something about how the period and a half is working with the students, that would be, I think that would be great for us to see. Like I said, I could go on, but I'm getting the stink eye. Again, I do thank you for mentioning the principals, because I know they're an important component to this. The collaboration, the partnership that all of you are showing with the teachers, with the principals and stuff, I think is going to be very helpful. So before I get pulled off the stage, thank you so much.
So I wanted to just thank these guys once again. We talked about it today, and I gave my oak tree comparison with planting the seed, and then in 30 years you'll have a nice oak tree. we're hopeful, Bob, that, to your point, that it's more like bamboo, and bamboo shoots out roots underneath the ground, and then all of a sudden you have a bamboo forest. And our hope is that the instructional practices that we're utilizing, the interventions that we're reliant upon, the curriculum that we're putting in place is spreading roots now deep that we can't see, and it's going to pop. And it's going to show that what we're doing is working, and it's going to help our teaching staff, it's going to help our students to continue to do great work together. So thank you all. We're happy to come, I'll speak on behalf of the group, we're happy to come back and continue to share on curriculum and instruction, because it's really a very important component of what we do, if not the most, right?
I think a roundtable like this in the spring would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.